When you tell yourself you can't do something, that it's impossible, your brain actually believes that that is a fact describing the current situation that you're in. And our brains don't understand the difference between what you're thinking and what your reality is. Your brain believes what you think. Hello, my mindful humans. Welcome back to my channel. It's Mike. Let's talk about limiting beliefs. This is something that I'm pretty passionate about, working on myself as well as really helping other people kind of uncover their own limiting beliefs and start to reprogram them. So a limiting belief is really any belief that you have, any thought that you have, often rooted in the past from some past experience that then you carry with you through life, and it limits you, limiting belief, right, from doing something that you want to do or achieve. And limiting beliefs often are rooted in some real experience from your past. Something happened to you and then you created a story about it. You told yourself something about it, often in childhood. And subconsciously, a lot of people, myself included, carry these limiting beliefs through life with them and don't even realize how often that belief about themselves is stopping them from moving towards their goals or achieving what it is that they want. I know when I listen to a limiting belief, I empower it, and I find myself paralyzed from being able to move towards what it is that I want. And often, if I believe I can't do something, I will not even give myself the opportunity to try it. And the more that I believe a limiting belief, the more it empowers that limiting belief and stops me in my tracks from achieving my goals and moving towards those things that I want in my life. When you say I can't over and over again, whether you think it or you say it out loud, you actually weaken your resolve. It has a change in your physiology and you'll be less resourceful. The more you say you can't do something, you'll be even less able to do that thing that you might want to do, but have convinced yourself is impossible. How many times has a limiting belief stopped you from moving towards something that you want in your life? Because if you believe you can't do something, if you believe you're not good enough to achieve it, that it's going to be impossible, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. That quote from Henry Ford is something that I remember all the time, and I really talk about it in my yoga classes, because if you believe that you're not able to do something, you're going to create so much evidence in your mind that it's impossible that you'll end up stopping yourself from even stepping into trying to do it. And that will keep you limited from seeing new possibilities in your life and from accessing those things that might empower you and move you towards your goals. The science of neuroplasticity is something that really blew my mind when I started to learn about it, literally. And it's really this science about how the brain is malleable, it's moldable, it's reprogrammable. And for a long time, scientists thought that after you went through certain stages of your life, your brain was kind of locked in and there was no way to go back and change it. That whole thought of you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I actually did a video on that, which I'll put up here. But it's coming back to the belief that if you think you can't do something, if you think you can't teach an old dog new tricks, you'll give up before you even put any effort into it, right? And the science actually shows you can teach an old dog new tricks. It just takes a little bit longer and a little bit more patience, right? And the longer you've believed a limiting belief in your mind, the more work it's going to take, the more consistency you're going to have to be able to start to change that thought in your mind. And the more you think certain thoughts, the more powerful they become. The more quickly they'll fire, the more readily they'll show up for you in any given situation. And what it is every time you think a thought, that an electrical connection between the neurons fires. There's a coating, it's called myelin, this fatty coating over the nerve cells in our mind, in our brain. And the thicker the myelin coating, the more you've thought something, then the quicker that will be what takes hold in your mind. There's something called NLP, which is a really powerful way to start reprogramming your limiting beliefs. NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming. And it can be good or bad, right? You can program your mind through thoughts and words to be negative, to think that things are bad, to think that people aren't good, to think that you're weak, you're not strong, you're not attractive, you're not lovable. All of those things that maybe you've told yourself for years, you have programmed your brain with words to believe that to be true. And neuro-linguistic programming is actually the way that you can start to break through those limiting beliefs by changing the words, by changing the story in your head. And it sounds really simplistic, and I say all the time in my yoga classes, it's really easy work. You just have to be doing it in every single breath of your life and being on top of keeping yourself accountable to not giving space in your mind to those limiting beliefs that keep you stuck. The words that you say and that you think to yourself matter. Your thoughts are important. And whenever you start to change the words, a really powerful way to do this is to put these limiting beliefs into the past tense. So if you have a story of I can't, change that to I couldn't. I can't do that yoga pose is different than I couldn't do that yoga pose, but I'm learning how to do it slowly but surely. Saying that I am can be changed to I have been. I am a procrastinator is different than I used to procrastinate, but I'm really learning to be more productive day by day. And you start to change these words in your mind as often as you can catch it. Sometimes those limiting beliefs are sneaky, they're insidious, they're underneath some decisions that you're making and you might not even realize it. But in those moments where you know you're giving into a limiting belief, change the words. Change it into something that is true in the past, but that you are working on in the present moment to get through and to move past. When you tell yourself you can't do something, that it's impossible, your brain actually believes that that is a fact describing the current situation that you're in. And our brains don't understand the difference between what you're thinking and what your reality is. Your brain believes what you think, and it will start to make those thoughts stronger. The reticular activating system of your brain is this filter, because there's billions of stimuli coming into our brain at all times, and our brain filters it down to what we can actually process. And if you've programmed your reticular activating system to see the world as this impossible thing to overcome, to see tasks, to see abilities as impossible, as things that you can't do, then you've actually made that connection in your brain much stronger, and you've created this filter that will block out positive aspects and just show you all this evidence of how incapable you are every single time you try to do something that's challenging. When you diligently work to put your limiting beliefs into the past with neuro-linguistic programming, changing those words and putting them in the past, your brain starts to believe that they're no longer relevant and will start to look for other options than those old limiting beliefs that it's held on to for so long. It takes patience and consistent practice. This is something that if you really want to get through a limiting belief, if there's something you really want to do, really want to achieve in your life, that goal that's out in the distance that seems unattainable, you have to really want it, and you have to want it so much that you are consistent in catching the thoughts that tell you you can't do it and changing them to something that tells you that you can. You might not have been able to do that thing in the past. You might have lots of evidence, you might have lots of perceived failures that you remember from your past, and in this present moment, it's a different experience. Now is not the past. Now has the opportunity to do something different that takes you into the future. If you're not used to questioning your thoughts, this might sound really simplistic, right? And I can say from my own experience, doing yoga, giving me access to meditation and inquiry, doing self-inquiry about my own beliefs and my own thoughts that hold me back, I started to just realize how ridiculous a lot of these things were. And for me, it started with yoga poses, right? I went into my yoga practice, 40 pounds heavier almost than I am right now, much less flexible, much more pessimistic about the world. And slowly but surely, as I started to clean up the foods I was eating, because I couldn't eat a big plate of fish and chips and go do yoga without acknowledging that that was horrible and uncomfortable. When I started to eat healthier just because I was doing yoga so consistently, I started to realize that these beliefs I had about my body, my physical limitations, they just weren't as true as I really thought they were. And slowly but surely, they started to become less and less true, to the point that most of the yoga poses I thought were impossible when I started doing yoga, I can do to some extent, or I at least have the belief that one day those poses I still can't do, that if I do consistent practice, I'll be able to achieve them. And slowly, after realizing how this was true in my yoga practice, I started to question about other things in my life. I can't dance. I just, stepping into it. Sometimes I dance if I'm in the right situation, or I can't do that, right? I can't go out and talk to that person. I can't, open up to somebody that intimidates me. And slowly I started to realize that I only can't do those things because I believed I couldn't do those things. And when you start to change the thought, I sound like a broken record, you start to change the way you perceive the world. After doing a lot of self-inquiry in different yoga trainings and just journaling and meditation, I got to the underlying belief that I'm unlovable and I'm not good enough. And this is something that really guided me through life, constantly trying to get people's approval, constantly trying to do more and to be better, which is not a bad thing if it's for a healthy reason. But if you're always doing more from the mindset you're not good enough, you're never going to achieve enough. And you'll always be working too hard and exhausting yourself for things that probably aren't even relevant to you a lot of the time. Whenever you start to reprogram the reticular activating system, you actually start to reprogram the way that you see the world and the filter that you're looking at things through. I can honestly say that 10 years ago, if you told me I would be a yoga teacher, that I would be talking on YouTube about positive psychology, about neuroplasticity, that I would be eating mostly plant-based, I wouldn't have believed any of those things were true. I would have told you that that was impossible. And I have, over the years, learned that I'm actually capable of doing pretty much anything within the realms of physics. If I put my mind to it and I put my focus on it and I believe that it's possible, I start to get creative and I start to see new ways to move forward on that path. It is possible to let go of old, sticky, stale, limiting beliefs. You just have to really want to shift them and have to be diligent about catching them and changing the words and changing the thoughts. Don't give your thoughts power if they disempower you. You are the one that chooses how much energy a thought takes. You can't always stop a thought from popping up, right? Our brains will offer us thoughts that it thinks we want to think, especially if it's a thought we've thought over and over again. It doesn't get that it's something that's negative towards us. It just knows that that's what we've told it to believe as true. That's what we've told it to fire more quickly. So once you start to question those things, once you start to catch them and diligently, patiently, persistently start to change the words in your mind, you can start to chip away at those limiting beliefs. And before you know it, you're no longer the pessimistic, angry chef like I was. You're suddenly somebody that is looking at the world through a positive filter and seeing the good in people and in yourself. I really hope that helped. This is something that really means a lot to me. I was paralyzed by my limiting beliefs for so long, and they still pop up. I still catch them. Me doing this video, that I'm not good enough story popped up before I started filming. Who am I to talk about limiting beliefs? Who am I to talk about neuroplasticity? I'm somebody that's passionate about it and I believe in it. And I've seen my yoga students and I've seen my friends and myself change the way that we see the world and change what we think is possible. It is possible for you too, okay? So please take that to heart. Start to question your limiting beliefs. Start to think about what you actually want to achieve and what might be stopping you from stepping into it, and then change the languaging. You can do it. Keep moving your body. Keep nourishing your body. Stay committed to stopping your limiting beliefs from holding you back. Yes, you can. Have an awesome rest of your day.